Okay, today we're evaluating functions. The functions today. So Rotomagaudra revision from grade 11. Rotomagaudra revision from grade 11. Then from there, that's another the content for grade 12. Function topic very simple command. Moral ability mathematics. As long as you can understand algebraic expression, or can understand the functions. So the first function that we're going to deal with is parabola. So parabola. So parabola, it has many forms. In many forms, for example, forms. We can write our parabola like y, which is equals to ax minus p squared plus q. So always, Morishimicha, this formula, you should know that p is the x value of the turning point. So your p is always the x value of the turning point. Your q is the y value of the turning point. Turning point. Or in a parabola, if you are looking at a parabola like this, we already know what here the coordinate is going to be p and q, which is our turning point. So therefore, turning point is always given by p and q, because p is the x value of the turning point, q is the y value of the turning point. Then again, we have another form for parabola, which is a standard form, which is like this: y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. In this one, c represent y intercept. So always relability c, relability y intercept. Always c is the y intercept when we're looking at the standard form of a parabola. And then again we have y, which is equals to ax minus r1 and x minus r2. So r1 and r2 is our x intercept. PDX intercept. These ones, they are always our x intercept. Another thing is, we have a and a. The main important thing is just that a determines the shape of the parabola. The value of a determines the shape of a parabola. And so obviously, the value of a is our parabola e thabile over e kwatlile na. That is the value of A. Then again, let me show you what I mean. So if we find a situation whereby our A is positive, this thing, our parabola is concave upward. Up is concave up and it is happy. So basically it shows a happy face. Like that. It shows a happy face. Meaning our parabola is gonna be like this. Always. I change. Always if our A is positive, between like in it, in any of these forms, this one or that one or that one, as long as A is positive, this A, as long as it is positive, it tells us that our parabola is happy and is concave upward. Then again, if our A is less than 0, again, our parabola is concave downward, concave downwards. So basically, elevation fast, meaning it is said. So it's like something like that. Then this it will be our parabola. These conditions don't go the Then we have something called vertical shift. Vertical shift. Our vertical shift is always controlled by hello. Zamaya. Five hundred from me.
Oh, vertical working projectile. Okay.
Oh, yeah, the other one. Yeah, mathematics. As far as from
All right, sure.
then our vertical shift of the graph is controlled by Q and C. So always this Q comes from this formula, is this one. Then that C comes from this formula, is this C. So always if our Q or our C is greater than 0, greater than 0, it means Q, if it is greater than 0 or C is greater than 0, our graph shift up what? Then again, if our Q or C is less than 0, Q is either like this or C is like this, our graph shift down what? So in terms of less than or greater than, a situation like is a number line, we have 0. So any numbers from this 0 that are less than 0 are the numbers from this point going that side, is where we're talking about Q less than 0, where the graph shifts downwards. Then from here, going that side, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4, is where Q is greater than 0, is where our graph shifts upwards. So greater than or less than. So they are always like that. I did change. So you just have to know these conditions, starting from these ones and that ones. Then again, the domain and the range of our parabola. We have something called domain and we have another thing called the range. So more determine the domain of your parabola is always x element of real numbers. That is the domain. It doesn't change. The domain of a parabola, whether it's happy or it is sad, the domain is always x element of real numbers. So the domain is x element of real numbers, but some people, they might not write it like this, in this sense, x element of negative infinity to positive infinity. This part and this thing, they mean the same thing. Then again, the range is always like this, y less than or equals to q. And this q, the guy on this one, that is that q. Q is always what the y value of the turning point. P is the x value of the turning point. So these things, they're always like that. So your range is y less than or equal to q only if our a is less than 0. Meaning, mo graph is a concave downward. Your range, you write it like this. You're gonna write it like that. Because our a is negative, and if our a is negative, our parabola is sad. Then again, our range is equals y is greater than or equal to q if a is greater than 0. If a are not positive, if our a is positive, that means our range, we write it like that. Then this condition, like this one, we can also write it like y element. Remember, Marabolaga range, we are looking at the y values. Marabolaga domain, we are looking at the x values. So this thing can also be written as y element of negative infinity and q inclusive. The reason why a square bracket is because of less than or equal to. So if is a greater than sign or less than sign with equal to, you will write a square sign. Then this one, we can also write it like y element of square bracket q to what? Infinity. So what choose choose my scatter. Again, let's go back and get these things again. Very much simple. Revision agreement 11. So what is happening is that our parabola has 3 forms. This form, standard form, and that form. In this form, our P represents the x value of the turning point. Our Q represents the y value of the turning point, meaning our turning point is always given by P and Q, which is P, the x value, and Q, the y value. And this A determines the shape of the parabola. If our A is positive, our parabola becomes happy. If our A is negative, our parabola becomes sad. Then again, in the standard form, our A determines the shape of the graph. Our C determines the y-intercept of the graph. And again, here in this form, R1 and R2 represent the x-intercept of our parabola. Remember, our parabola is a binomial expression. So from that instance, it has 2 x-intercepts. And our A also determines the shape. The shape, if A is positive, our parabola is happy. If A is negative, our parabola is sad. Always like that. Q and C shift the graph vertically, either upward or downward. If we subtract Q, we shift the graph downward, or if we subtract Q or C, we shift the graph downward. If we add Q or C, we shift the graph upwards. Then let's look at another thing. More reliability, the x-intercept. X-intercept. In x-intercept is where our graph touches the x-axis. Is where our graph touches it. If we have a parabola like this, and we have R1 and R2 there, this point, they intersect the x-axis. We call them x-intercept. And always under the x-intercept, our y is always equals to 0. Because this point will be 0, like 1. Then this x-axis, it takes 0. If we're going to have what is just this one, R2 is going to be that x value and 0 because it's on the x-axis. Then y-intercept. Y-intercepts. In y-intercept, our x is always equals to 0. So basically, you substitute your x with 0. So y-intercept is where our graph touches our y-axis. Where our graph touches our y-axis, this point, we call it the y-intercept. Then we can have our x-axis there. Then that means this point and this point are our x-intercepts. So basically, like intercepts, they mean where a graph touches either the x-axis or another graph. Like, for example, they can talk about interception. Interception, graph that is interception. Y-intercept and x-intercept is where our graph touches the y-axis or the x-axis. Then more like interception. If we have a parabola like this and we have a straight line, this is a straight line graph. Let's say it's f of x, this is g of x. Then this point and this point is where g of x and y of x intersect. And at every intersection of the two graphs, g of x is always equals to f of x. If we come on a situation, I'm talking about interception. Always like that, interception. So our level any several problems based on parabola problems. When you're on a question, not gonna flow. When you're on a question, what have Apple no homo one.
Earlier revision at grade 11 as well.
Yeah.
It's just no reminder of that.
Yes, like that. So what are I did say about these things?
Yeah, so no question from my side.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first, before level up problem, yeah, parabola. Let's also do a revision for grade 10. Like a straight line function, straight line graph. Okay, our straight line graph is given by this general formula. It's given by this general formula. Our y is always equals to mx plus c. That is the general formula for straight line, whereby our c is the y-intercept. How do you get the y-intercept? Wow, okay, y-intercept so, okay, so C is always our y-intercept. Our M is always what? Our gradient. And we know what again? Gradient is always equals to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. That is our gradient. Always, that is our gradient. Then our gradients determines the shape of the graph. Like this gradient, it will determine basically the slope of the graph. Let me not say this shape, the slope of the graph. It determines the slope of the graph. So it's always like this. If our m is less than 0, if it's negative, that means our straight line is going to be like this. And again, if your gradient is positive, that means our graph is going to be like this. It has a positive slope. So gradient always determines the slope of the graph. So I will not level any a problem. And based on straight line and parabola. Electropagation law. Okay. We have a parabola. A parabola and a straight line. So remember again, sketched below are the graphs of f of x, which is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. And also we have a graph of g of x, which is equal to negative x plus c. This straight line has a negative gradient. And if it has a negative gradient, that means our graph goes like that. Then A and B, they are saying is the x-intercept of x. A and B are the x-intercept of x. Then our turning point is equivalent to 3/2 and 49/4 is the turning point of F. B and S are the point of intersection of G. So basically, B and S, which are the point of intersection of F and G. That it means B and F is where f of x is equals to g of x. The two graphs, they do what? They intersect each other. Then, let's look at the questions. The first question says, calculate the coordinate of B. If you can check a B is what? Our x-intercept. So, is the x-intercept of the F graph and G graph. So basically, how are we going to calculate for B? Always in x-intercept, our y is always equal to 0. Then we're going to say 5.1 x-intercept. Let y to be equals to 0. So we are going to use this formula of the straight line to determine our x-intercept because I don't know information for the parabola. So Ritoshmisha our straight line because this thing is also the x-intercept of the straight line. As you can see, the straight line intersect the x-axis at B. So again, y is equals to negative x plus 5. Then at y, we'll substitute a 0, which is equals to negative x plus 5. Then write this 5, write this on the other side. Because it is positive, it becomes negative. It becomes negative 5, which is equals to negative x. Then we divide by negative 1, and again negative 1. Then we get 5, which is equals to x. Then we can write it as x, which is equals to 5. Then remember, they didn't say find the x coordinate. They said find the coordinates of B. Santo conclude again, therefore B is 5 and 0. This 0 is because x-intercept, always your y is 0. That's why we put 0 there. At this point, your y is always 0. Then, when I say x-intercept and y-intercept, but I think it's simple. Then, the second question here again, we have the 5.2. It says, determine the equation of f if in the form. Basically, we calculate the equation of f in the standard form. And when we check our given information, we only have the the turning point coordinates of our parabola. Then Ritoshmisha this form of our parabola, x minus p squared plus q. Then y is equals to a x minus our p is replaced by what? 3/2 because what we turning point, we have p as our x and q as our y. So then at the p part, we'll substitute 3/2 squared plus at the q part, we'll substitute 49/4. So the only thing is our a. Then more, or again, or substitute coordinate, any coordinate that we have in the graph. So basically, researcher calculated the coordinate of B, which is 5 and 0. So we're going to substitute B, which is 5 and 0, into the equation. Then here, the document guy at y is 0, a. Then we replace x with 5 minus 3/2 squared plus 49/4. So we're gonna just take this one to the other side of the equal sign. Rahumana negative 49/4, which is equals to a 5 minus 3/2 squared. Then let's try to calculate. Then let's try to calculate in bracket 5 minus 3/2 to the exponent of squared 2, which is 49/4. Negative 49/4 is equals to, because this part, more calculator 49/4, what? A. Then our A, it will be equals to negative. Then more calculator in terms of fractions, so very smart. Or again, negative 49 over, how calculator is very negative 49 over 4 divided by 49 over 4. Damn, increase. Negative 49 over 4 divided by 49 over 4. So 1. Negative 1. Then we get negative 1 there. Then this is our A. But remember, they said write the equation of f in this form. Then y is equals to negative x minus 3 over 2 squared plus 49 over 4. So I'm going to resolve this thing or refit it. So the y, which is negative x multiplied by x is x squared. X multiplied by this is negative 3 over 2 x. This multiplied by that is negative 3 over 2 x. Then this multiplied by that, we're going to have positive 9 over 4 plus 4 over 49 over 4. Then these things, when we add them, I'm going to talk more about that. We got negative 3 over 2 minus 3 over 2, which is equals to negative 3. So we'll be having y, which is equals to negative x squared minus 3x plus 9 over 4 plus 49 over 4. Then y is equals to, then we multiply by the negative to remove the brackets. It's negative x squared plus 3x minus 9 over 4. Because negative multiplied by positive is negative plus 49 over 4. Then y is equals to negative x squared plus 3x. Let's check that.
Benny. Positive 3 we grade level.
Positive 3.
Hey,
Oh,
our negative.
yeah, in negative one. So basically, negative multiplied by negative is positive 3.
Oh, multiply. All right. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Then it's plus 12, which is our standard form. Then this other question were again, 5.3, if f of x is equal to this, calculate the coordinate of s. Then this one can find as z plus y. Can you find minutes? Moire 8 to send another link. Then this one get plus y. Then to their corrections after that. More feature one from the garab. By 8, we come back again. Ragushanamas.
Okay, rumela paper le kara group.
Yeah, I don't remember this page garab.
And then Rana could do a question 5.34.
Yeah.
All right.
Then come on like Gushana.
Okay, cool.
Sure.